Hello and welcome to the Learning Lounge, iHasco's monthly podcast series where we delve into a variety of subjects as we look to uncover opinions, expertise, and experiences with our studio guests. Our intention is to provide some thought-provoking discussion and debate, which we hope you'll find engaging, interesting, and insightful. Today, we'll be unraveling the mystery of the accidental manager. We'll be speaking to our guests about the brewing crisis itself, burnout, how managers and businesses can tackle the issue, and the role of training. So, introducing our guest panel today, we have Alex King, Sales Manager and Mental Health First Aider at iHasco, and Zoe White, Assessment Center Manager at Care Skills. Welcome to you both, guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So, let's dive straight in. Let's introduce you both. I'd love to hear a bit about your roles. Zoe, do you mind just starting off by telling us a bit about yours?
Yeah, so I'm the Assessment Centre Manager at Care Skills Academy. So I oversee the whole assessment centre, but I also assess qualifications, internally quality. I'm an internal quality assurer, and I also do training sessions as well with my learners.
Okay, fantastic. And Alex, what about you?
Yes, I am a sales manager here at iHasco, but also a mental health first aider. But with my salesman management role, I look after a bunch of BDMs to help them get to their KPIs, hit their targets, and generate revenue for iHasco.
Fantastic. Well, like I say, it's great to have you both, and I'm sure we're going to get a great range of views and experiences on this topic, and hopefully give our viewers and listeners some good insights to take away. So let's just start off. The accidental manager. What is this idea, this sort of notion of the accidental manager? Alex, can you tell us?
Yeah, I think it's, it could be someone who's potentially fallen into a management position. When I kind of first thought of this subject, it might be someone who could be potentially a high performer within that, that company. And the thought process might be, hey, you're doing really well at your job. Let's put you into management. Now that might seem right on paper, but in actual fact, has that person received the right level of training, coaching, mentoring? But like I say, I think that could be quite a natural thought for a lot of people. And I think it's something we're seeing quite a lot that, is happening in all different industries.
Yeah, and no doubt, because obviously getting that promotion to become a manager is a super positive thing, and all the intentions are good, I'm sure. But what you're saying is that maybe there's something around the timing, perhaps the situation, and of course not having that proper training.
Yeah.
So what is it that managers? What is it that you kind of need to make sure that you're ready for becoming a manager that these people maybe are?
I think essentially you need to have the willing to learn. One thing I've noticed as being a manager myself is that you do learn whilst you're in the position as well. Like you're always learning new things, new ways of dealing with things. So to have that ability to take like constructive criticism on board and not just look for the positives all the time, to kind of look at improving yourself, that's a quality that needs to have. And also to work to targets. Like there's one area that somebody could be good at, but as a manager, you need to have several of them areas where you excel at. And having that support network from your manager or your company is vital.
So, when you think about people who are being promoted into these roles and becoming managers, as we would probably have to say too soon or before they've had the relevant training, what are the kind of negative knock-on effects that we can see in other areas of the business? I mean, when we think of employee retention, engagement, productivity, these kind of things.
Absolutely. It's going to have a knock-on effect on the team. The team's rapport it could damage if you're not dealing with situations and the dynamics correctly. Sales, it could have a knock-on effect on if you're not being proactive in hitting your targets. I think essentially it has a knock-on effect on all of the business, like across all areas.
And Alex, for you, do you find yourself, especially in your role as a mental health first aider, do you sort of see that, the kind of negative impacts, or maybe you can tell us a little bit about the negative aspects that come from being promoted too soon?
Yeah, I think, even if you kind of look at my journey at iHasco, I was a business development manager, then moved into a sales manager to look after that team. So, the people that I worked with knew me and knew Alex as a business development manager, but not Alex as a manager. So that was a learning curve for me, but also the team that I work with. So, you have to kind of build their trust and, build the rapport. Then what was really helpful at the time, as I say, is being a mental health first aider. I had some qualities where I could have good conversation with someone. I could show empathy. I could be understanding. So that helped me quite a lot in my um, sort of beginning stage of being a manager. But you're right. I think, and probably going forward, we'll talk about it more. But having a group of mental health first aiders in a organisation will help massively when it comes to potentially being an accidental manager.
Mm. And the transition to becoming a manager is a really important one. Like you say, going from being a part of the team to leading a team, there's all kinds of relationships that change within that. And it's the kind of thing that you don't want to rush, do you? I mean, and also like you were sort of alluding to, training helps you come up with techniques that will help
Yeah.
you deal with that transition. So perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about the transition itself from going, from being someone who's part of a team to leading a team, and why it's so important that that is a well-managed process in itself.
Yeah, so I had very similar experience in my progression as a manager. So started as an assessor and an IQA and then worked my way up. And to be fair, I am managing the team I was part of. And the dynamics in that, it's hard because you think nothing will change because you're just you and you've got these extra responsibilities, but people look at you differently and expectations are different. And yeah, it does cause some issues sometimes in the dynamics, but it's a different kind of dynamic to what you had before. Um, so yeah, my experience was I was really fortunate. My experience was really, really positive. I've basically got the training, got the mentoring. Still now, I still can reach out to my managers and no question's a silly question. They're always there for me. So I've been really fortunate, but I know people that haven't had that and just kind of feel lost in the role. They've got this promotion, they've got the pay rise, they've got everything else around it, but nothing to kind of tool them to do, like the tools to do what they need to do, and to deal with them when they are dealing with a situation that they've not come across before. Because whether you're a manager or not, in situations that you've not come across before, we all need guidance. So as a manager, that's still just the same. It's no different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just thinking about what the repercussions are for an accidental manager, burnout is certainly a key word that we hear a lot. Just Alex, perhaps obviously you think about your skills and expertise as a mental health first aider, especially, how would you describe to our viewers and listeners, how would you describe burnout?
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably find loads of different definitions and analogies of burnout. I think the way I would describe it, and that kind of resonated with me, is if you're driving a car, say if it's petrol or diesel, and you've kind of got how much petrol you have in your car, and if you're getting towards the red light, you need to refuel, you need to re-energize, basically, and that's how I would describe burnout in the simplest way. That kind of resonates with me, and you will see that amongst your team and people you work with, your friends, your family. But what I would say and what I kind of learned, especially from being a mental health first aider, is that everyone goes through that at different speeds. Someone might go through it quite often and quite quickly, whereas sometimes it might take someone a lot of time to go through burnout. Um, that's why using things like annual leave is really useful, but then also taking some time out for you, go do some training, develop your own skill sets. But it's a really, yeah, it's a prominent thing. We work in a sales environment, so you see that. But speaking to friends and family, you'll see that across all different industries. So that's where it's important for kind of us as managers and our group of mental health first aiders that we kind of see those signs early on, and sometimes we need to be proactive to speak to those people as well.
Mm. So, I mean, it sounds like burnout is something that, we'll all naturally, probably find when we're working hard with everything we're doing. But it's a case of, like you say, how people come to that point
Mm.
and how quickly they go through it. And so, Zoe, just from your experience, you said obviously you had a good transition into management,
Yeah.
good training, and you had that whole process. So I imagine also that you may have experienced burnout, right?
Yeah.
How would you say the difference would be from the kind of burnout that you might have experienced and what you knew in your training, or how to apply yourself to manage that, compared to what someone who may be in this accidental manager position might be dealing
I
with?
think by just giving yourself boundaries, like as a new manager, you want to do the best. You want to make sure you don't do your job 110%. And sometimes then boundaries need to kind of like rein you in to have that homework balance of like not work, work, work all the time. You need to switch off. And like you said, have that kind of self care and separate the two for your own kind of mental health. So I think that's really, really important. And I was like, I had all the support possible. And even I still experience like I want to do really well, but knowing your triggers and knowing the fact that you're feeling these emotions that you say that people experience them very, very differently and at different paces and at different times. But I think it's important to just identify that you need to have that homework balance and that space where it's you can only do as much as you can do to the best of your capacity. If you start to burn out, then you're not doing it to your best.
What can we say to anyone who might be watching who may feel like they're in that sort of position or getting close to feeling that position as an accidental manager who might then be experiencing burnout? Like, what would be the key tips that you guys would give?
Communication, I think as long as you communicate and you're open and honest, anything can be resolved and supported.
Are we thinking here more to communicating to the higher ups?
Your manager, your line manager, higher up. Obviously, you wouldn't go to your colleagues and talk about it because that's extra pressure on them, and that's not what a manager does. But definitely to speak to your line manager, just to say, "Look, I'm feeling like this," and like just talk about it. That's the only way that we can solve situations and come up with like a resolution on how to move forward to prevent that happening again.
Yeah, and Alex, do you have any?
Yeah, I think, and just to literally, I completely agree. And I think to add to that is, it's okay if you feel like it. If you feel like you are burning out, it's not a sign of weakness. And like I said before, people go through it at different speeds and different times of the year. Um, and again, you might be thinking, I've got a holiday booked in, and before your holiday, you naturally feel like you're burning out because that's there, it's ready for it. But it's okay if you feel like you're burning out. I think that's just a natural thing to do, because we all work, but out of work, we've also got a life as well,
Family,
family. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, how many times do we get to a holiday and we're like, "Oh, I've been looking
Yeah.
forward to this for ages." And
Yeah.
you get there, you get ill, and
Yeah.
then you're like, "Oh
Need
my
a
gosh,
holiday
Yeah.
after a
yeah,
holiday.
you need the holiday after holiday."
Yeah.
That's it. And you'd probably set a little fake holiday just
Yeah.
before that one, and then hope for it. So I feel like we've been talking about this from the perspective of the accidental manager, more so than maybe we need to
Yeah.
talk about what those above
Mm.
and the responsibility that they have for them.
Yeah.
How can those who are placing these people into their roles, or maybe they've done it and then now they're watching this and going, "Oh, I feel like I may have a couple of accidental managers in my teams," or what can they do to sort of look to help and support those who might be in this position? Because it's okay if they're watching this and go, "Oh, I think I may have promoted
Yeah.
someone too quickly. I feel like they're maybe getting this kind of thing."
Yeah.
What can we say to them?
Well, it's like we say, sometimes it can be the natural thought to progress that person, right? But I think, if you are a manager of another manager or an accidental manager, whatever it might be, you know, there's never so much there's never too much guidance or support you can give that person. It's about kind of being proactive, and if you do employ someone to be that manager, it's not a case of, right, I've done that job, tick on to the next one. The amount of times you can check in with them is so
Yeah.
valuable. That'll be the big thing.
It's key, I think, even as a manager that's kind of embedded within the company, like it's key to just have them check-in points with an equal level manager or someone from above, just to kind of have that support and know that there's somebody there for you. So yeah, I absolutely think exactly the same.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And also probably be useful for them to take a view, as you were saying, Alex, before, like you promote someone who has fantastic, been hitting all their KPIs, they overperformed, they did all this stuff, and so they went into this role, and then they're starting to see this person in this role. And they're kind of disappointed in how they're doing. They seem to be very stressed, and they're not really doing as well as they thought. I mean, how important is it that they sort of take a different view on it now? I think this is going to be a really useful conversation for them to hear, actually, so that they can actually identify these.
Yeah, I think it's really important because if you're working for an organization, they might have goals and things that they want to achieve. And if you're working as part of a larger group, this is the same sort of thing. So ultimately, we're a team striving towards the same goals, and that's absolutely fine. But I think to get to those goals or those standards where you want to be, the role of that manager who's looking after a bunch of managers is to constantly be there to think, right, does that person need any kind of coaching, mentoring? Do we need to put them through another course? Do I need to just take them around a block and go for a coffee to see if they're okay? Because that way you might think, after just that simple conversation, you know what, actually, the person that I thought would be really good at this role is really, really good, and they are right for it, but maybe there's something more that I need to do and figure that out. So I think the main thing, and what I'd advise to those people is just be proactive and don't kind of just sit there thinking that that job's done. I've got that person in place where, yeah, that is half of it, but then you've got to go out and support them.
That's just the start of it,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? Getting that position, recruiting someone in that position. It doesn't end there. It's a long process, and they need to be committed to that and know that they need to be open, and that open line of communication is apparent. And the colleague knows that, like the person that they've recruited as the opposed accidental manager, like that they're aware that there's support there for them. I think that's key. I know a lot of people would feel probably embarrassed not like to go and ask for help if they were struggling, and that's no one likes to ask for help,
Yeah.
but we all have to at some point if we want to do well in what we do, and whether that be work, home, whatever. We don't know what we do, and the only way to improve is to ask.
Mm.
So yeah,
You can't go far wrong by asking someone if you want to
no,
walk around and go for a
Mhm.
coffee or something.
exactly.
Be genuine. Ask them about what's going on in their life, that sort of thing. And you never know, you might unravel something that's a bit of a problem. But if you're finding out then you're going to be doing yourself a much better service if you're then finding it 6 months down the line where
Yeah,
that person that you've employed is completely burnt out. They've fallen out of love with the job that they thought they were signing up for. So again,
You
it's
might
that.
lose them.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. When you might think, gosh, like what could I have done better? But that at that point it's too late. So it's just those little things, those little check-ins.
Gives you
That's so
time if you
valuable. Yeah,
identify it earlier, you can build them back up again
yeah.
and reassure them that you're there with them and that they don't have to worry.
Mm,
It sounds like keeping an open line of communication is so key.
Absolutely.
And that's not just the person who might be in that accidental manager role talking, like we said before, and speaking to the higher ups, but actually the person who placed them and other managers always checking in and always being aware that they're a manager still too, and that person is in their team, and that they need to, and that reflects on the quality of their management skills as whether they're identifying these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So looking at this accidental manager sort of idea, there's obviously lots of negatives that can be, that are brewing as a result of it, potentially even a crisis that could come, especially a mental health crisis within the workplace. Zoe, how do you see this sort of accidental manager idea, notion, and what it could become if we don't sort of look to educate and nip it in the bud?
Destroy companies, couldn't it? Like people's careers where support could be put in place and they could have a relatively positive career if the support was put in place. So I do think it is an issue that could potentially affect other people, not just that accidental manager as well.
mm.
Max, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. That person that has been put into that position as accidental manager, you know, if they then thought, you know what, this just isn't the right thing for me and decided to leave the organization, move to somewhere else, that's a big thing to kind of go through. It might not be as simple as that either. They might leave the organization, but then not find a new role for a while. So you get all that kind of anxieties, those pressures there. So I think it's kind of one of those things we need to really think about, because it's not just the organization at risk, it's that
No.
person and their career going forward. We work a lot.
Financially, for
Yeah.
their home life as
Yeah.
well, it can have an impact on that also.
Yeah.
And also, I think the worry as well is that if you have this negative experience in your first, foray into management, it could make you think you're not worthy of that
Yeah.
role or even that step up anywhere, regardless of the company you're in. A massive confidence knock, which obviously can lead to a spiral. I think it might be important then if we can just touch on a little bit about like what that I think. I'll obviously defer to you guys and your experience, but let's talk about just the kind of personality qualities or working qualities that make a good manager. And I think what I want to get to is this idea that so many people can be managers and really good managers with the right training. They can make it. And anybody who's in a situation where they might go, oh, I'm not really cut out for this, it must be because of something to do with me, just that they know that it isn't that. I think it would be great just to delve into that a little bit. So Zoe, you recruit, you're looking out for different people, you're looking to promote people. What are the kind of qualities you look for in people, and can anyone be a good manager?
I think so. I think when I'm looking at recruiting, obviously I don't recruit for management as such, but I do recruit as part of my team. And it is very much like good organizational like values, making sure that you're prepared, you can work to a quick deadline, you're proactive in what you do. So like you don't constantly need me to keep on going, have you done that? Past the deadline, can you get that to me? But you use your initiative. And I think if you've got them qualities, you've also got the ability to achieve anything. If you want to do it, you'll do whatever it takes to get to that point. And I think sometimes it's just trusting your own abilities and going, actually, do you know what? Like, I've got this. Like, it's going to be difficult, but I've got it and I can do it. So when I'm looking at CVs and stuff like that, it's only a tiny snippet of that person's kind of employment and education. So I like to kind of ring them up, get a feel of them on the phone, see how they are, see how they talk, how they interact with me. I ask them a couple of questions and then I do a Teams meeting because I just think you can tell so much more from seeing the person, their body language, how they interact with you, and whether that's going to be a good fit with the team. And I think that's really important to kind of look at all areas of that individual rather than just what's on a bit of paper.
100%. And Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it'd just be kind of adding to that really. When I've been going through quite a few interviews recently to get some more BDMs within my team. I love to just listen to and hear their story, really. What kind of motivates them? What do they do out of work? You're right, we get kind of a CV come through and I'll give it a read, don't get me wrong, but I'm almost thinking, right, I've got your CV, like, talk to me.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is if you can then, if they're willing to speak to you and you can understand them, what kind of motivates them, what do they do out of work, that to me is then kind of thinking, right, I can really see if you are a fit for the team, a fit for the organization, but then also someone that I could potentially work with.
Yeah.
When we are recruiting, it's yeah, they're looking for that role and to be within that organization, but are we making the right decision for them as well? Really, that's a key thing.
Yeah. I
So
think dynamics is really
yeah,
important
Thinking about the group as a
yeah,
as a
whole.
whole as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
'Cause you're creating a little family there,
mm,
and
Yeah.
you're sort of putting a parent in charge, and,
yeah,
not to demean what's going on beneath, but like there's just those different roles and there's different relationships. Like you say, the dynamics are so important, and you've got to get it right. That being said, training can obviously play such an important role with getting people prepared, as we've already touched upon. Just talk me through sort of what effective leadership training looks like, getting people prepared for these kind of roles, Alex.
yeah. So when you think of leadership, there's so much kind of to it, and not in a scary way. It's kind of a big thing for me that I learned from was active listening. That's quite a big thing within leadership and being a manager. So it's all well and good, asking a question, but you're actually listening to the answer to that question and you thinking, right, I remember my training. I need to ask this question, and I'm thinking of the next question to ask. And then sometimes, a lot of people can see past that. So yeah, a big thing that I picked up on when I went through some leadership training was that piece on being an active listener, and that then also comes to being genuine as well. A lot of the time we've probably all experienced it, right, where someone's asked you a question, you think, are you asking me this question because you care, or like,
Yeah.
what's the meaning
If you've
of
got a
this?
tick box to
Yeah,
tick, are you
yeah,
just asking me for the sake of asking
yeah.
me? Yeah.
How important is empathy when it comes to
Massively, I
Mm,
think. At the end of the day, regardless of your position, we all humans, we all crave the same thing, we all want to achieve. So I think, yes, position bears weight, but to have empathy, you don't need to be a manager. You just need to be a decent person. And I think that's really important when you've got that in somebody and you
mm,
see that within your team dynamics as well. I think it's
yeah.
really nice, refreshing as a manager to
Mm,
see it where your team's all gelling together and you know you've made the right decision.
mm. It's a skill, I
Yeah.
think. Like I remember one of my colleagues, and he won't mind me saying, but that's something he struggled with. He was a manager and he struggled with showing empathy, but he was absolutely amazing at so many other things. And again, like we touched on it, that's okay, and you can learn those sort of things. But sometimes you might have to experience a certain
Yeah.
situation, but then it's so important to then learn from it, and kind of think, did that go well? Could I have done a little bit better? Like those things, even if you're doing it in your head, are so important for that progression.
Analyzing
Yeah.
your experience, analyzing your experiences and seeing what you can learn
Yeah,
from it.
yeah, definitely. I think it's so key. And I know we've touched on it before, like even when you are a manager and you've gone through hopefully some leadership training and
Yeah.
all that, you still have to keep on learning new things. And even if you get put on a course and you think, oh gosh, I've got to do another course, you will go on that course and think, oh, completely forgot about that. Or yeah, I was doing that, but I didn't know what's
I
that. And
have it
then
a
yeah,
lot with my trainings as
yeah,
well, and training that I've done.
yeah,
It's like that light bulb moment, isn't it? You think, oh God, we've got another lot of training
yeah.
to do. I've done this how many times?
Mhm,
But you always take something away from it,
mm,
always. Like I haven't met anyone that's done an online training or in-person training and they've didn't learn nothing.
mm,
So I think it's really important.
yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, just to finish on that idea of training and how valuable it can be. I mean, should people who set up this kind of training, like, should they expect, an increase in like organizational performance? Will they be able to see that kind of return on investment, do you think, or is it more kind of a holistic thing?
Yeah, it's different for a lot of people, I guess, in different industries and different organizations. I think there's there's definitely no harm in putting some people through training courses, because whether you're learning something about that topic or you're in and amongst other people who are doing the same role as you, that's so valuable. I remember doing a course and I've done it so many times before, and it was really valuable, don't get me wrong, but I learned so much by the people who were also there next to me, just by their own experiences, and gone, hey, how did you deal with that? And I did it this way. I think, well, I would never have thought to do that.
Hmm.
So, there's training is so key, and it's just important to embrace it and not think of it as a case of, oh,
Got to
got
spend
to do
money,
it.
yeah. So it's more of an investment, would you say, Zoe?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
You
an
learn from
investment you
others.
can see a return on.
Yeah, like I think you learn from others' interactions as well. Like you hit the nail on the head
Mm,
there, where you were like in training, you listen to other people's experiences. So I do think like that's key in the training and
mm,
in that side of things.
yeah.
Like I do think it's really important.
Even if you're doing it on your own, say if someone's put you through a course and you're literally the only person doing it, and you're watching a screen, it gives you time to get away from what you're doing on a daily basis, which, yeah, you might love, but also it's that kind of self-reflection and something might click. I learned a few years ago about the change curve, and I thought I always knew about change and how people get on with change, but then to actually see it in a course has really resonated with me. So even if you are on your own and you have to go through a training course, that also gives you time to reflect on your own role and gives you some time back to you, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just to finish up, I wanted to do a final thing for the viewers and the listeners. So, if we can give that little takeaway, I think, and if I allocate for you, Alex, I'll allocate you the accidental manager,
Mhm.
and then for Zoe, if anybody watching who may have placed accidental managers or maybe trying to identify them, I think if we could just give a little takeaway from a conversation today that you really want people just to know. Alex, perhaps we can start with you. And what
Yeah.
would you say to someone who may feel like an accidental manager who might be experiencing burnout?
Yeah, I think, like I said, if you are in that position where you've become an accidental manager and you're experiencing burnout, you're fine. You're right to think that. It's a normal thing. It's that kind of analogy, as I said before, like you've got a petrol car and you're running on empty a little bit, but it's then so important to communicate, as we touched on, speak to your manager, speak to other managers within the department. You'll see me so many times. I'll wander all over my office, just speaking to people and picking their brains on things, just to try and understand different ways of working. But as I say, ultimately it's okay, but you have to try and communicate, or look towards, hopefully if you have a bunch of mental health first aiders who are willing to support, because if you are a manager, you can't help others if you're not helping yourself. um so yeah, I think that's the main thing I'd say, is literally that. That's something I learned on my mental health first aid course, is yeah, to help others, you got to help yourself.
And Zoe, to anybody who may be trying to, may think they have placed people into management roles who may be a little bit too soon or not have that proper training, what would you be saying to them?
Have that conversation, like have them regular check-ins with them, have in their one-to-ones, in their appraisals, have them conversations, try and find out what they're feeling like their weaknesses and strengths are, and try and promote the strengths as opposed to the weaknesses, and identify the weaknesses, but subtly
Mm.
kind of build on them. I don't feel like just because it was accidental, it can't be successful. So that's what I want them to take from it. I want them to see that actually just because it was an accidental, you can change it into a positive. Absolutely.
Fantastic. That's a great one to finish on. I think, guys, thank you so much. And like I said, to Alex and Zoe, it's been a really insightful conversation and great to
Thank
sort of
you.
highlight this idea of the accidental manager, which hopefully we all can take away and keep an eye out for, and obviously have loads of insight to sort of know how to act on it as well. So thank you to everyone who's been watching as well. And if you'd like to listen and watch again or share this podcast with colleagues, please visit the iHasco website or our YouTube channel, where you'll be able to listen and watch on demand. Thanks again, Alex and Zoe,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.